We're going to give it a couple of minutes for others to sign on, and then we will get started. Good to see some familiar faces and some new faces. We're going to get started in probably a minute or so. Just going to give people time to wake their computers up on Monday here. And Allie's put some notes in the chat. If you want to take a minute to share a little bit about yourself in the chat, that would be great. I think things have slowed down a little bit in the waiting room. So Allie will keep letting people in as they arrive, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, thank you so much for being here. Allie, I think you're going to share your screen, right? Thank you so much. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us for the first meeting of the new Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance. You can forward the slide, Allie. Today, we're going to explain what the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance is and how it works. And we're going to introduce you to the core partners of the Alliance so you can hear all about the amazing work that they're doing all across Rhode Island. We are going to have plenty of time for questions at the end, and we'll also be giving you some simple instructions, the instructions that you need to get involved in the Alliance. You can forward the slide. So the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance is a joint effort by a diverse group of organizations to connect Rhode Island's farmers and fishers to our state's food insecure households in a way that benefits everyone. Over the next little while, you'll hear inspiring stories firsthand from the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island, Eating with the Ecosystem, Farm Fresh Rhode Island and their Hopes Harvest program, and the Southside Community Land Trust. But before we start, I want to briefly introduce the Rhode Island Food Policy Council. We don't do the work of moving food on the ground in Rhode Island, but we do bring people and organizations together in a way that they might not otherwise. Organizations who share a commitment to our mission to build a more equitable, accessible, economically vibrant, and environmentally sustainable food system in Rhode Island. The Council operates with a strong commitment to equity. We recognize the fact that many negative impacts of Rhode Island's current food system are grounded in a history of colonialism, genocide of Indigenous people, slavery, private ownership of land, and the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of too few. And we believe that when power shifts to be shared more equitably across our communities and our state, that we transform our future together for generations to come. So to that end, we work to build and maintain a strong network of stakeholders from across our entire food system and leverage that network to build a just and resilient food system where all Rhode Islanders have access to nourishing and affordable food. Everyone is welcome to be a member of the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, and if you're interested in learning how, you can visit our website, which is here on this slide, and click on Get Involved. So on to talking a little bit about the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance. This alliance was born from a simple idea that everyone in Rhode Island deserves access to fresh local food that our state has in abundance. This program provides neighbors facing hunger with fresh local food while supporting the state's agricultural and fisheries economies, an integral component of Rhode Island's way of life. During the pandemic, we saw our local food producers and harvesters step up to make sure that everyone had enough to eat. We saw local consumers step up to buy local food to make sure our farmers continued to thrive. So the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance creates sustainable connections for local farmers and fishers with food pantries, food rescue organizations, food distributors, and other partners so that Rhode Islanders in need of fresh, local, culturally appropriate food have better and more consistent access to it. The partners who you'll hear from in a moment work to ensure that our local emergency feeding system serves as a reliable wholesale market for local producers and harvesters, while also becoming more resilient to supply chain shocks from public health emergencies and climate-related disasters. Simply put, for food producers, the Alliance offers a fair market price for produce and seafood, and for food buyers, deliverers, and distributors, the Alliance helps add locally produced food to supplemental food options for clients. So on the next slide, you can see that Alliance members provide security for farmers. The program provides a new market for Rhode Island growers and harvesters who benefit from the security of a known sale of quantities of wholesale products. The partnership also offers valuable marketing visibility for local food producers and harvesters, giving them access to new audiences. The food moves through specialized aggregation points, and this is where our core partners come in. Farm Fresh Rhode Island, Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island, Eating with the Ecosystem, and Southside Community Land Trust work with farmers and fishers to establish quantities, prices, and delivery schedules that make sense. Then they purchase food and bring it to hunger relief organizations that want and need it in communities across the state. Finally, the food reaches pantries, soup kitchens, and other emergency food sites. When these sites procure local food, they're supporting the Rhode Island agricultural and food economy. And this strengthening of our state's food system and our state's food economy helps to create a Rhode Island where we all have more opportunities to live healthy and fulfilling lives. So to summarize how the Alliance benefits Rhode Island, first, improved health for residents facing hunger. Second, security for farmers and fishers. Third, a stronger Rhode Island economy. And finally, a reduced environmental footprint, because by purchasing locally, the food that's being provided is fresher and lasts longer, so there's less waste. And now I would love to pass things over to our first core Alliance member who's going to speak today, Fred Matera, who's the Executive Director of the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island.
Yes, Nessa, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Rhode Island Food Policy Council has been substantial in helping us move forward with this program. I am a retired commercial fisherman and executive director here at the center. Back in 2020, our industry was really struggling like all industries. We had no markets, there were no restaurants, there was no retail, there was no wholesale. And fishermen started to call, what do I do with my product? Is it all bycatch? Do I have to discard this? Things we never want to say, but so we looked into trying to find access, and we were fortunate to meet up with community partners throughout the state that had families that needed food, and thus the program commenced. We were fortunate that our community partners, they're willing to embrace whole fish, which as a donation, instead of having to process it and freeze it, et cetera, like you would with food banks. So that's made it very successful, and the price and access sustainable in the long run. We have two individuals that have been extremely loyal to us. The gentleman to the right here on the screen is Alan Eagles. He's fished over 50 years. He is a loyal supplier week after week of Jonah crabs. We started with 100, 200 pounds from him, and now we're up to sometimes 800 to 1,000 pounds a week that we purchase from Al. Dean Passanti, who owns the Oceana, is a gill netter. And one of the products that our refugees really enjoy is bluefish. But we have a very difficult time getting any through the fishing vessels or the trawlers. Dean harvests these in the springtime, And he had made a loyal commitment to us as well, providing 1,000 pounds of bluefish every week for probably close to 6 to 8 weeks. So that worked out fantastic. And that's what we're getting is a buy-in from our industry. We obviously deal with a considerable amount of dealers, a considerable amount of other fishing vessels. And as you can see, to date, in 39 months, we have supplied over 395,000 pounds of fish free to these socially disadvantaged communities. Now, the species that we use here are what we call underappreciated. It's just that people don't know that much about accessing a scup or a sea bass or a monkfish or a skate or any of these other species here that we've described here in this PowerPoint. So this makes this extremely successful for us, and we hope that this will only grow, and we'll be able to provide more and more seafood with this, which is healthy, local, nutritious, and it's harvested right here by our local fishermen. The process works. We buy it from the fishermen or from the dealers. We pick it up in a refrigerated truck. We deliver it to the community partners, or actually Farm Fresh has a fixed unit there. That's a refrigerated unit, which makes it more accessible for our community partners there in the city. And then they pick it up on Saturdays. All of their volunteers come and they hand out, to maybe as many as 700 to 800 families pick up fish now on a week-to-week basis. We used to do 200 to 300 pounds per refugee center a week. We are now up to, this week here alone, we'll probably do 6,000 pounds of seafood that we give out. And we do a diversity. We do shellfish, we do crabs, we do finfish. Even at times we do tuna. We get tuna given to us for free. So it's a great program, very accessible, and the refugees and those that receive this are super grateful. It's extremely rewarding program. Thank you. I will introduce now Kate Malley from Eating with the Ecosystem. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Masery. I'm the executive director at Eating with the Ecosystem. And our mission is to promote a place-based approach to sustaining New England's wild seafood through flourishing food webs, healthy habitats, and short adaptive seafood supply chains. And we've been working with the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island with Fred and Shay on the Rhode Island Seafood Donations Program. We've been primarily providing background support as well as educational content. So we helped kind of facilitate the relationships that helped get us that refrigerated unit that's now in the parking lot at Farm Fresh, and have also been providing, Fred mentioned the wide diversity of species that are part of the program. Sometimes these are species that the community partners and the recipients of the seafood are pretty familiar with, like scup. We've been learning from them how some really exciting ways to prepare scup and some of these other species, but sometimes there's species that maybe they don't have in their home countries, or they're not as familiar with, something like a monkfish, for example. And so we've been providing some educational content, recipes. We're currently working on a recipe contest with some of the participants. We've done a few cooking demonstrations and are planning on doing more, and have provided other seafood information and cooking information to the recipients of the seafood, so that if they aren't as familiar with a species, they have resources to learn how to cook with them. Another program that has been part of this, that we've been a part of, actually, Ali, if you go back for a second, sorry, is our Cook-A-Fish Give a Fish classes where we've been raising money for the seafood donation program through teaching people how to cook with local seafood. And so we have a class coming up on November 29th. Anybody is welcome to join, but the way that it works is it's via Zoom. So you join from your own home kitchen, and we bring in chefs to teach you how to cook with different local seafood species. The one on the 29th will be with Eric Brown, who's the chef at Thick Neck in Providence, and we're going to be doing a monkfish dish. And we sent out the recipe ahead of time. You joined via Zoom that night, and you get to cook along kind of with the chef. And all the proceeds from the ticket sales goes towards the seafood donation program. So it's one way that you can help support the program while also kind of be learning and cooking a meal for yourself that night for dinner. And then we've also helped connect fishers or seafood businesses interested in contributing to the program. We've had a few fishermen reach out throughout the seafood donation program time period since 2020 that have said, you know, I've got all this fish that I was hoping to be able to sell to the dealer, and you know, like they're not taking it for whatever reason. And so helping connect them with Fred and Shay over at the Commercial Fishery Center and set up a way that we can either pay them for their catch or that they can donate it through the program. We've been helping to facilitate kind of those relationships as well. And then another aspect of the, I guess, the program that we've been helping with is actually since 2015, we've been working to get local seafood into the food bank. Fred talked about our seafood donation program being fresh, primarily whole fish and shellfish. Getting seafood into the food bank is a little bit more complicated. It has to be frozen and it has to be packaged in family size kind of portions, has to be labeled appropriately. And so we've been working with seafood businesses who are interested in selling seafood to the food bank and having it being distributed through the food bank system, through the food pantries, to get more local seafood into that program. And one of the, I think, businesses that has been most successful kind of and has been selling through to the food bank since our kind of pilot project in 2015 has been Tony's Seafood in Warren, Rhode Island. They started testing a variety of different species with us initially, including sea robin that you see in this picture at the top right. And they have continued to sell different parts of the fish. So cod chunks is one product that has been sold through the food bank for years now and is a really popular product. It's an underutilized part of the fish. So when they're filleting the fish, they cut off kind of these belly flaps that are plenty of meat, really delicious, but is not your traditional fillet, and it goes really well in chowder or stir fries or a bunch of other different things. And so Tony's has been able to sell that through the food bank as well as additional other products. We also helped connect Red's Best, which is technically a Massachusetts seafood business, but that buys from Rhode Island fishermen. They were selling skate to the food bank through this program. So we've been able to help businesses who are interested in selling seafood to the food bank connect with that market as well. Next slide, Allie. So I just wanted to say, like, if you are an organization or business looking to either source seafood and need help, or if you're a harvester or seafood business looking to sell seafood into the emergency food system, whether it's fresh seafood that could be part of the seafood donation program that the Commercial Fishery Center is leading, or through the food bank system, then please reach out to either me or Fred and Shay at the Commercial Fishery Center, and we're happy to help kind of make those connections. And I'm going to introduce Ava over at Farm Fresh / Hope's Harvest, who will be talking a little bit more about their program.
Thanks, Kate. I have a little bit of a sore throat today, so if I sound a little plugged up, that's why I've got a lozenge in. But I'm super, super happy to be here talking about the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance and talking about the great partnerships that we have with all of the different organizations that are on this webinar today. So Farm Fresh Rhode Island is the organization here that envisions a New England abundant with diverse family farms and fertile soils with locally and honestly produced foods and flavors at the heart of every table. And you probably are familiar with Farm Fresh. We do a lot of different types of programming around the food system in Rhode Island, farmers markets and farm to school work and all kinds of that type of thing. But I'm here to talk very specifically about how Farm Fresh gets food into the emergency food system. And originally I had founded the Hope's Harvest program back in 2018. We were a fiscally sponsored program of Farm Fresh. And now we've officially become a formal program of the organization as of 2022 and taken on this whole scope of work that includes a bunch of different components that go sort of above and beyond what our original work was and have sort of merged and meshed with a lot of the things that Farm Fresh was already doing to support the local food system and support hunger relief work. So here you can see a few different programs that we work on. We do gleaning, which I'll explain briefly. We purchase surplus product from farmers to sell directly into the hunger relief system. We contract with growers to grow food specifically for hunger relief. We run the Farm to Food Pantry program, which is an LFPA funded program through the Market Mobile online ordering platform. And then we work with the Department of Environmental Management on the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. And again, these are all different ways that we're getting food into the hunger relief system. So very briefly, gleaning, which is not really what we're talking about here, but just because it's up on that slide, I want to mention, because people also sometimes get confused with all the other stuff that we do. So gleaning is when we're going out and we're harvesting any excess produce. We're organizing volunteers, we bring the produce to hunger relief, and we are the only farm-based food recovery organization in the state, although not the only food recovery organization in the state. There are a lot of people doing that. If you skip to the next slide, the food that is gleaned is a donation. So the farmer is donating that food to us, which is great. And, farmers get a warm, fuzzy feeling. They get a little bit of extra labor. They get some exposure. We try and raise up what they're doing and let people know about them. There's more long-term resilience in the food system when this happens, and we keep donation records. Next slide. More of what we're talking about in this project with Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance is where farmers are actually getting paid for their product. So contracting is one of the ways that we do that. We work with a bunch of different farms starting in January. We'll talk to them about what type of product they might have available for the upcoming season, when they're buying seed, and then we create MOUs where we pay 60% of the value of the total contract up front at the beginning of the season, and then 40% upon completion of the contract at the end of the season. So we've done that with the farmers listed here. We've distributed well over half of those funds out to BIPOC farmers, which we're really proud of. I've got pictured here two different farms that we work with. On the left are Margarito and Teodulio Martinez, and on the right is Charlotte Uwimwe. They both also work with Southside Community Land Trust, who's coming up next. And they're really great farmers, and it helps them a lot to know what they can expect. And we're a very flexible market, so we don't usually say, oh, it has to be, 1,000 pounds of onions and 1,000 pounds of lettuce. Usually what we say is we're excited to take, most of what you have throughout the growing season, and we can sort of negotiate as we go based on what's doing really well at different times. So we're a very flexible market in our contracting. Next slide, please. We also purchase surplus. So this is when a farmer has something left over. The example we tend to use is, for example, we've worked with Feral Big Farms in Tiverton. They grow potatoes. A couple years ago, when there was a drought, there was not a lot of rain, and the potatoes never got quite big enough, and they weren't able to sell those potatoes to their usual wholesale markets. And we are not super picky about the size of potatoes, and so we were able to purchase many, many thousands of pounds of potatoes because we had funding available to be able to buy that and make sure that those potatoes weren't getting wasted. And all of those potatoes went into the hunger relief system. So we do that on an annual basis. Usually right around this time is when we're doing most of that, because there's more apples and squash and what we call root storage crops. So we're really happy to be able to make sure that food is not getting wasted. Next slide, please. Another way that we work is through the Farm to Food Pantry program. And This is funded by the local food purchasing agreement, and we have support from USDA and the Department of Environmental Management. This is a $1.7 million project over 3 years. We are partnering with Commercial Fisheries Center and Southside Community Land Trust and the Food Policy Council on this. And we make sure that 65% of all that funding is going directly to farmers. For Farm Fresh's administration of this, some of it is for contracts, some of it's for surplus. We also do a program where we award small grants to hunger relief agencies to be able to purchase food from farms directly through the Market Mobile food system, Market Mobile online ordering platform. So we find a lot of agencies are able to purchase milk and eggs and protein that they wouldn't get otherwise or wouldn't be able to access otherwise. And this has been a really great program. We are now in our 2nd year of using LFPA funds to do this, but we've been running the Farm to Food Pantry program for a number of years now. Next slide. This is one of those like very text heavy slides, but these are vendors who have sold through that program. And just to give a sense of the scale of the benefit so far in 2023, vendors selling through Farm to Food Pantry have received $170,000 for their products to go to hunger relief. So I think sometimes folks don't always realize what a large market hunger relief agencies can be. And I think it's good to have a sense of, you know, the real financial impact it can have for businesses. Next slide, please. And these are a list of the pantries who've received funding through the Farm to Food Pantry program. We've got, I believe, a representative, Donna Matthews is here joining us from St. John's Lodge. So I would love to hear more from her maybe later on. But we're thrilled. It's a wide variety of organizations. It's not just hunger relief agencies. I know that's the case for a lot of the partners. So it can be food pantries, but it can also be senior centers, health clinics, community events, lots of different ways, and lots of flexibility around how we can get food out into people's homes that are really in need. Next slide. I just also wanted to briefly mention the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. The LFPA is a federal program. This is a state program. It also has some federal funding that's specifically for seniors. So we source produce for hunger relief boxes that go out to senior citizens. This is the last year that we'll be running this program, but we distributed 9,000 boxes last year, and we reached every senior center in the state. And that equaled $178,000 in produce purchases from local producers to go into those boxes. So again, a market that is really available for growers in the area. Next slide, please. And just to give a sense of what all this looks like on the back end, you know, as an aggregator, we're liaising between farmers and food pantries. We're running operations logistics. We're putting food on trucks and driving it around. We manage volunteers to help with these programs. We monitor food safety, a really important thing to make sure that the food's getting where it needs to go safely. We work with donor engagement, and we work on fundraising for these programs. We track a lot of data to make sure that we can report out to our funding sources. We do outreach and communications. We love to tell stories about what we're doing. And for us, the real big picture here is we're trying to fight food injustice and grow a more equitable and sustainable economy overall, where everyone has access to food, and also a food system that works for everyone, so that producers can get paid to make sure that the system is working well across the board. Next slide. So now I'm going to introduce Sam from Southside Community Land Trust to talk more about what they're doing.
Thanks so much, Ava. As she said, I am Sam Shepard. I'm the Grants and Communications Coordinator from Southside Community Land Trust. We shortened and sweetened that to SCLT, so we don't have to say that mouthful every time. But our mission at SCLT is to provide access to land, education, and other resources so that people across Rhode Island can grow food in environmentally sustainable ways, and so that they can create community food systems where locally produced and affordable, healthy food is available to everyone. So SCLT was founded in 1981 in South Providence. It was a partnership of neighbors who are predominantly refugees and immigrants from Asian and African origins. They couldn't find sources of fresh, locally grown, and culturally familiar produce. that they could continue their food cultures, eating the nutritious veggie-based diets that they were used to before coming to Providence. So they came together and converted a residential lot into a community garden and started growing their own food, feeding themselves, feeding their families and their neighbors. So today, 43 years later, SCLT now has a full-time staff of 22. We manage a network of 23 community gardens across Providence, Pawtucket, and Central Falls, and we contribute to the leadership of 30 other gardens. So growing in SCLT's gardens are almost 400 people. They're growing food to feed their own families and to sell at markets as well. We also manage 3 rural farms. Those are located in Cranston and Tiverton. 40 farmers are working on those farms. Ava referred to Teo and Margarita as well as Charlotte. So they're growing out on our farm in Cranston. They use organic and climate smart practices on their farms. We also operate a youth program where we employ more than 40 young people aged 14 to 24 every year. So this program is really excited. Youth get exposed to career opportunities in urban agriculture and food systems. And they get to earn micro-credentials and transferable certifications that they can carry with them, hopefully in future careers in food systems locally. Okay, so I specifically wanted to chat a little bit more about our aggregation program. It's seen a lot of growth in the last few years. So if you remember the circles graphic of how the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance works, SCLT primarily sits in the blue and green circles. So we are local food producers and we serve as an aggregation point. So we also connect those resources to hunger relief organizations. So we do work very closely with that yellow circle as well. Our new headquarters at 404 Broad Street does feature a farm to market center. So we have a wash and pack area, a cold storage, and commercial kitchen. So SCLT primarily works with historically underserved farmers. Those farmers bring their produce to this aggregation point and sell it at a fair market price. So we work with farmers also on crop planning so that we can fulfill aggregation orders. So from them bringing their produce to the center, these products are washed and packed according to preset orders. And then we mainly distribute to systemically marginalized communities through a really extensive network of community partners that we've been building. The missions of our partners align with our mission of addressing food and nutrition insecurity for more vulnerable populations. So our work in the last year includes distribution to nearly 2,000 seniors through the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program and about 5,000 children in Providence public school systems. Also, we've been expanding our Veggie RX program. It's a really important distribution outlet. We work specifically with Clinica Esperanza, Lifespan Hospital, and Integra Community Care. So their medical professionals actually prescribe produce for their nutrition insecure patients, and we are responsible for fulfilling the orders of that produce. So through these outlets, we distribute produce grown by 27 farmers, and the food has reached 9,500 people in Greater Providence this year. Those 27 farmers took home $190,000 in sales this year alone. That's twice the distribution numbers and twice the sales that we saw last year, and we are hoping to expand that in the next year. So as Eva mentioned, in the last year through the USDA's local food purchase agreement, we have expanded the reach of SCLT's aggregation program, and we've also been looking to more non-traditional outlets to distribute produce to. So we've held more than a dozen free farmers markets over the last year, primarily at community-based organizations and events. Some of these have been Southside Community Land Trust events, but we've also worked with a lot of partners like the Davy Lopes Rec Center, a lot of senior centers, DARE, as well as Providence Parks. And these organizations, like Ava mentioned, don't typically center food security as their primary service, but they do recognize that equity in food access is incredibly important to the people receiving services at their centers. So I have a quote here from one of our partners. It's the executive director, Khadija Lewis Khan of Beautiful Beginnings. Beautiful Beginnings is a child care center on Elmwood Ave in Providence. They're a new partner with us this year. And the produce that we distribute to them is not only going to staff who work at the center, but the families who receive child care there. So Khadija says that nearly 100 families, including our staff, have asked to participate in this program and will receive fresh fruits and vegetables at no cost. Many parents have shared that with the prices of groceries soaring, which we all can relate to, they have really cut back on purchasing fresh produce, and this partnership with Southside Community Land Trust ensures that they have weekly access to a variety of fresh fruits and vegetables. So it's really important work. You can go to the next slide, please, Allie. So as I mentioned, we are always looking to expand this really important work. In looking to 2024, we want to both increase the number of farmers that we work with and increase the number of distribution sites and distribution organizations that we work with. So unfortunately, my coworker Kakina, who is the program coordinator, is unable to be here today, but you can see her email address here on the screen. Everyone at Southside follows the usual email formula of first name at southsideclt.org. So if you can only remember my name after this, just shoot an email to sam@southsideclt.org, and we'll get that information to the right place. But we are more than willing to sit down and have conversations about what this program could mean to you as a farmer or producer, as well as a distribution site. So yeah, please feel free to reach out at any point. I think that's all I had for Southside, and I will be passing this back to Allie. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you to all our core partners for all of that great information. It's been super helpful to have all of that context. Oh, I'm skipping ahead. I don't know how I ended up backwards. Give me a second. Okay, so what I wanted to talk to everyone about is the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance website, which hopefully most of you have already discovered. This site is basic but powerful. So what it does is allows us a platform to connect together. So first and foremost, it's a place where you sign up as an Alliance member. And by being here today, you can check that box. We know you're here and we are glad to have you as a fellow Alliance member. But we really encourage you to encourage others to join us in this space. So actually, like Sam said, you could certainly email us. I am Allison at rifoodcouncil.org. And our organization follows the same formula as that. So just reach out. We really just want to connect people and find the best ways to make it work for everyone. The webpage also offers a space to show distribution points. So with that, not only does it show you where they are, but it also shows you where the gaps are. So if you are a person that recognizes a gap in your area and you want to figure out where distribution points can be, we hope you'll reach out about that and help us solve it. And most importantly, to stay connected, bottom of the webpage, which certainly, hopefully you can go visit today, you can sign up for all of the upcoming meetings. So that is the best way for us to stay in contact a few times a year, just as a touch point to stay updated, stay connected, and then share news and important stories that are happening. And to that point, we really hope that you'll stay as engaged as you can with this work. We know this is a very busy time of year for a lot of individuals, especially working in food production. But hopefully over the next few months, when things slow down just a little bit, you'll be able to join us in bigger conversations. How can we spread the word about this alliance? What is the best way to make it sustainable? And then here we have the next 3 meeting dates for the remainder of I guess this session of the grant and the period. So February 12th, all of these are Mondays, all of these are at noon. February 12th, May 13th, and August 12th. So please save those dates in your calendar and register in advance if you can. And the next thing I want to do is just open it up to questions, because I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of things you want to know and maybe some more specific points. So if you haven't already put some questions in the chat, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and invite you to pop any questions you have in the chat, or you can go right ahead and come off mute or raise your hand and we'll call on you. Oh, and I do want to mention, if you have not received your Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance badge, I'll be sending those out post-meeting. So this is a little graphic that we are all sharing as a sign of uniformity and solidarity so that people can start recognizing what it means to be a part of this alliance. I don't see any questions off the bat, but I did have someone reach out via email. I'm not sure if this person is in the room with us, but this is an individual that works for a church in Providence, and they have a grocery delivery initiative. And they were wondering how to initiate connecting with donors for those groceries. So they have a specific set of 20 bags of groceries per week, and they were wondering how to best connect to fill those bags of groceries with locally produced foods. So I would love one of our core partners, anyone who has an immediate answer, just step right up.
Allie, can you hear me? If that individual gives us a call, we will try to participate, and maybe they can pick up at the refrigerated unit at Farm Fresh. It might be more ideal. And maybe we could supply, 100 pounds of seafood for that variety. Thank you.
That's great, Fred. Thank you. Are there any, is there any information they would need to have ready in advance before they speak to you?
No. As long as we start a conversation and can figure out what days, what times, what works best for them, what works best for us. We'll give them a schedule that we pretty much adhere to on a week-to-week basis and see if that'll fit their needs, meet their needs.
Perfect. Thank you.
Allie, I can talk a little bit about how it works to get signed up with the Farm to Food Pantry program. Usually we send out kind of a call for folks to submit a form to us at the beginning of the season. So that's usually in like April-ish. And then anyone who applies, we have, we ask for their name and where they're located and delivery information, how many people they're serving. And then we allocate how much funds are available based on the number of people that they're serving. And then that funding will be available usually from June through the end of the fiscal year. So the end of December, and they can spend that money down at any point during that time. Allie Jennings, who's running our Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, is also on the line. If they're serving senior citizens, it's possible that we could also add them as a site for the SFMNP program. And we do have some availability, I think, for that program through the end of the year.
That is very helpful, Eva. Thank you. I do see Dana's question in the chat, which I addressed, which is that the website only has registration for February. And that is because I hadn't set up the links yet. So I'm going to set up those links as soon as we sign off, and I'll get meetings 3 and 4 sent out to you folks for joining us today right away. And I'll make sure I update the website immediately. No, you're fine, Dana. There's been a lot going on. So yeah, don't worry if you're missing the links. It's because they don't exist yet. It's not you, it's me. Are there any other questions from folks here on the screen?
I just want to note that, we are recording this meeting. So if you know farmers, fishermen, pantries that you think should know about the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance, you'll be able to send them to the Rhody Feeding Rhody webpage, and we'll have a link to the video there as well as the explanatory information. Everyone is welcome to reach out directly to any of the core partners, but if you're not sure where to start, then you can actually just fill in the information that Allison shared, and we can connect you with core partners for conversations as it seems to make sense for your needs. And we are also happy to have just individual concerned citizens and folks from other entities like state elected officials, funders, anyone else who wants to learn more can certainly join future meetings or review the recording and get in touch to find out how they can get involved. I just wanted to share that, Allie. And I don't know if there are any other questions in the chat.
I have a question. Can I speak? Yeah, okay. My name is Catherine Brown, and some of you I know. I'm really interested in making sure that all of the tremendous work that you're doing and the collaboration that you have evidenced over time and the innovations that you're able to create to make this connection between producers and people who need to eat happen over the long haul. And I just wonder if people can tell me, what percentage are you supporting your work with through grants, and what percentage is coming from any other innovative funding methods that you have in place? And how long are your grants for? I saw a 3-year grant. I know we got a lot of federal support from the pandemic, but I know that's probably going to dry up soon. So just your reflections on the sustainability from a funding area would be very good for me to know. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us, Catherine. I can start, and I'm sure others have good answers to this as well. In terms of sustainability, I do believe that there's an ongoing conversation at USDA, and will be through this Farm Bill cycle, about ways to encourage this type of purchasing for the long haul. We probably won't see the LFPA itself built in to the Farm Bill conversation, but that kind of federal contracting for these types of purchases does feel, I think, to a number of people like it has an opportunity to be built in somewhere, even if it's not called a COVID program or called LFPA. Farm Fresh and the Food Policy Council both recently became new members of the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition. And Ava, you might be able to say more about this, but I think in terms of sustainability, that's something that's on my mind right now.
And for those folks who don't know, National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition is a lobbying organization based in DC that represents a lot of different interests in the sustainable agriculture field, and has a working group specifically around local food marketing. There's a federal bill that was introduced by Senator Markey around local food procurement that is really interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities there. And I think, Catherine, it's sort of like we have this amazing opening, which I think we've seen with a lot of the federal programs that came out of the COVID response, where we get to say, like, look how nice it can be if we actually invest in these public goods that are really important. And so I think it's our mission here to lift up all of this work, as you're saying, and really tell a powerful story about what a difference it's making for our local growers, so that we can garner long-term support, whether it be a mixture of federal and state support, other types of philanthropic funding, perhaps corporate support and sponsorship in some way or another, and a mix of those things, I think, is probably some vision of what it would look like moving forward. But I think that the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance is a really important part of that, because what we can do with this structure is lift up all of the work that all these different members are doing, and show how many people in Rhode Island are really positively impacted by it, across the spectrum, from individual citizens to food pantries, to hospitals, to farmers, to, you know, aggregators. Just like we're all in for this. And yeah, this is our opportunity to get together and think about how we want to shine together.
I can add a little bit in, but I feel like Fred, you probably have a lot more to say on the topic.
We probably would have done now, I'd say in 2023, well over $200,000 that we've purchased of seafood to a variety of different fishermen and dealers, etc. And it's growing. You know, every year it seems to be a 30% increase. We're now looking to do something with K through 12, but preferably K through 6. Monkfish. Monkfish used to be a high valued species. It's very low now. Korean markets have been depressed, supply chains issues. So it's a less expensive fish, but excellent to consume. And so we have Tony Seafood making us monkfish sliders. And actually this week, this Friday, we will go to a Gallagher Middle School in Smithfield, and they'll do some sampling there. So We're looking to expand that, but we're constantly, seeking funding. We've been fortunate. Rhode Island Foundation has supported us. Rhode Island Food Bank has supported us. This Food Policy Council and this network of individuals, well, LFPA, LFPP, et cetera, have provided some funding as well. And we have a strategic help initiative, an anonymous group that's been extremely supportive. But I'm always clamoring to try to get the state to step up for all of us for long term, to invest, a few $1 million here for, 4 or 5 years, so it is sustainable and we can build on that, or USDA or federal. We haven't had much luck with the state and federal yet, but it's just a matter of time. So that's where we are here. Go ahead, Kate.
I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, I just want to echo what Fred said. I think primarily it has been grant funding that has supported these programs. And I think, looking forward, when we're talking about whether it's state or federal level funding, a lot of times seafood is left out of that kind of conversation, is not necessarily included in purchasing. So you can use that funds potentially to purchase local agricultural goods, or support supply chains that are tied into again, like produce and agricultural goods. But a lot of times seafood, just because of the way it's separate, it's not part of typically the USDA is including more of it, like more and more, but it's typically managed under the NOAA or separate kind of agencies. In most places, it's been left out of the conversation a lot of times in terms of purchasing. And I think Rhode Island's been doing a really good job of trying to include it in it. And I think the Food Policy and Council in particular has been really doing a great job of including it in the conversations around this type of stuff. But I think that's why these type of alliances are so important, is bringing together kind of all of the networks. But yeah, I think seafood a lot of times is left out of those bigger purchasing decisions. And not necessarily on purpose, but there's more logistical challenges sometimes associated with it. So
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Kate. And I do believe, like, the purpose, the Rhody Feeding Rhody Alliance has grown out of a federal grant, the USDA Local Food Promotion Program grant, which obviously isn't designed to result in advocacy. But it could be that that concept is something that could be of interest at the state level, that everyone coming together and bringing this food to these communities for a shared, purpose and a shared mission could be something salient, to talk about at the state level. So we're just have finished the first year of this 3-year grant, and we certainly want to continue to get the word out about the Alliance and continue to grow it and have more distribution points. And that's the primary purpose of the LFPP. But I think when we talk about and think about sustainability, that there are multiple different pathways that we can think about: the federal conversation, the state conversations with our private foundations about a type of investment that won't leave people always scrambling, would be wonderful for everybody. Yeah, and thank you, Ava, for noting that the LFPA is currently funded through the end of, is that 2024, Ava? Right. And we're supporting an evaluation of that program from the producer end and harvester end and consumer end. So hopefully the data coming from those evaluation reports is going to be supportive of just talking about impact as well.
Overall, do you have a back of the envelope estimate for how much you need every year to purchase this seafood and local food? 100,000 here, 125,000 there. I wasn't keeping tab, but like $1 million?
The total funding for LFPA has been $1.7 million over 3 years, and that has
That's probably program cost too, right?
no, yes. So it's administration and purchasing. So it's 65% purchasing, and then the remainder 35% is admin. And then we're also getting additional administrative funding from the LFPP to support the work. So it's theoretically the admin costs could go down once it becomes a little bit more like plug and play, and we've sort of figured some of the relationships out. But it is an admin heavy scope of work because we're really trying to build not just physical infrastructure, but knowledge infrastructure and relationship infrastructure, and skills around, tracking and reporting and all sorts of those different types of things. And we have a lot of team members on the back end. Like, I put that slide up for a reason, the list of all the things that we're doing to support this work. So I mean, some of the proposals that we've seen don't include any admin funding at all at the federal level. So like, some of the money is coming from the Commodity Credit Corporation, which is just purchasing funding and no admin support. And a lot of the programs across the country who've received LFPA funding didn't actually receive admin funding because their state agency took the majority of the available admin funding and then just passed along the purchasing funding to organizations further down the line. And that's been really, really hard and has not worked super well for those states. So that's
Do you think that 55-35% breakdown is realistic, ideal, sustainable, important? Or do you think it's more, or
I
just
take
get a
it.
feel for it? Well, no. It's not just that you like it; it's that you need it.
Yeah, no, it's needed. It's necessary. It absolutely is necessary. And it's a 65-35 breakdown.
Yeah.
I mean, what Rhode Island has that I don't think the other, any of the other states have is an LFP, a 3-year LFPP implementation grant that's about this market. So we've been able to support, the council has been able to support these core partners with admin funding that has exceeded what, other states have received purely through the LFPA alone.
That's probably why you're so successful. Not to say that the money out to producers isn't really essential, but I also just know organizationally that that's realistic to think about. So I'm glad you got that.
Yeah, Jessica mentioned in the comments that there's been support received from UNFI as well that went to Southside Community Land Trust and a little bit to some of the sub-awardees.
Great for your example of corporate help. Nice. Thank you. Just interested. I'm thinking about this all the time, thinking that it's important. Maybe I can help. We'll see.
And Fred, did you want to share what you put in the chat? Did you want to voice that?
Yeah, what I've expressed with the governor, with our delegates here in the state, and with both of our senators in the congressionals, is that we were looking for at least $250,000 per year, and that would cover seafood purchasing, distribution, and admin cost. And for a 4-year period, I'm looking for $1 million. One of our senators submitted in the budget, but it never got to the budget. So, and federally, we keep getting, we're working on it. So we're used to this, especially in seafood. So we'll continue to pursue. We keep growing. We've been fortunate that we've had some incredible funders here statewide and throughout the community. And hopefully they'll continue to sustain this until we can get substantial funding through the state or feds.
Thank you for that, Fred. And thank you, Catherine, for the questions. Thinking about sustainability, I think sometimes we don't get a chance to do that, and it's really so important and useful when we can.
One of the most inspiring things that you've done here with this alliance is to bring people together to think about that together, not competitively, but together. It's a really great model. Thank you.
Thanks for your words, Catherine. We're excited. The Alliance is up and running with these public meetings now, and we're excited that we have the next 3 dates scheduled. So please invite folks who should be here to come here. Anyone is welcome who wants to hear about this. And I think that we can have updates from the partners in the future, as well as to weave in some of these conversations about sustainability in an ongoing way. These can be a forum for that as well. So it is 1 o'clock. I want to thank everyone who made time to be here today and all of our speakers and Allie for putting everything together. We will have the recording posted soon, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week.